me, Oysk15. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you haven't been here before. Hi, my name is Oysk, also known as Kayla, but spelled funny, C-A-Y-L-A. And how are you doing, guys? I hope you're doing well. Today, we are going to be reacting to some stories from the Am I the Asshole subreddits. I've seen some of these stories before, but today we're going to go for some of the top stories right now. And we're going to see how this goes. So let's just get into it. Alright, the first one here says, am I the asshole for not letting my nephew have another serving of food? Ooh, okay. Okay. Let's just try to have an open mind. Okay. I, 27 male, have 3 of my nephews over for the weekend. They're cool kids and I love having them over. However, one of them, Eric, 14 male, has a gigantic appetite. Like, literally every time I see this kid, he's wolfing down food. You wouldn't think it because he's super lank, but I guess he's at that age where it's normal. I've been there. At dinner last night, we had a nice meatloaf and some mac and cheese. I gave everyone big servings, and the other 2 kids were happy with it, but naturally Eric wanted more. I told him he should probably just save room for dessert, and he did. But he still wanted to eat another serving of dinner after dessert. I wanted to save some food for our dinner tomorrow, so I told him he couldn't have any more. But my wife, 26 female, went over my head and told Eric he could have more if he wanted. And he went on to eat so much he almost instantly fell asleep on the couch where my other nephews were playing video games. It was overall a really good day, but I was miffed that my wife went over my head over the food thing. They must be English. Or Australian maybe, I can't remember, but I know miffed is like a thing that we don't say here in Canada. Over my head over the food thing, and when we went to bed I told her I felt like what we'd served was reasonable. She argued that since Eric is a guest, he can have as much as food as he wants and she can always buy more. She usually stocks the kitchen. She thinks I'm being a jerk for thinking I can control how much we do or don't serve, and that it's weird I would have told Eric he can't have another serving without at least checking with her first. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. Was I being the asshole? I think I was in the right. Why not save some? Dinner, Eric already had a lot of food as it is. Okay, so this is a complicated one for me. As somebody who lived in a house where I was pretty frequently body shamed and was always getting comments like, really, you're still eating? Like, maybe you should slow down a little bit, or like save some for the rest of us, or like, I don't think you need any more. Like, you need to, like, if you're gonna eat that much, you should exercise more, or something like that. And just like some crappy comments, and my little sibling got them often too. Telling somebody that they can't eat when they have the appetite to eat is very triggering for me. I think there is a point where it is overindulgence, where somebody can be eating their feelings or getting addicted, and that can be dangerous. But he said, like, what, this kid was like a 14 male? Like, whether he was male or not, like, teenagers typically do have a big appetite. Like, I had a pretty decent appetite when I was a teenager, and I only stopped eating as much because I was often being told that, like, I couldn't have more, or like, you know, being body shamed or something. And when that wasn't what necessarily was always happening in my head, like, even like packing myself lunches when I was a teenager to go to high school, like, either I was really tired or lazy, and I knew my parents wouldn't pack my lunch even if I asked. And so, like, saying that, like, hey, I needed some help, I never packed my lunches when I went to school, and I would see if I could find something there. Like, almost never packed my lunches. Sometimes I had, like, money to, like, from, like, my part-time job or something that I could go and, like, get food. But when that wasn't the case, like, I just didn't eat anything. And I did used to say that it was just because of laziness. But to be perfectly frank, I think part of it was because I had those comments that were constantly made by family members in my head that, like, maybe if I just didn't eat a little bit, it'd be fine. even though that's like not the case. And so now that I'm older and I don't have people, you know, telling me that, I eat whatever the hell I want now. And whenever my body tells me that I'm hungry, and they don't get mad at me for it, and my body's fine. So like, and obviously my appetite is like very different than it was when I was a teenager. And so like, he's a growing kid. Like, he's allowed to be hungry. It's fine for him to have a gigantic appetite if he's genuinely hungry. And like, I agree with the wife that like, you know, it's weird that he can't have anymore. Like, you know, yes, it's nice to have like leftovers, but like, when you have different guests in your house and you say you have 3 of the nephews staying over, plus you and your wife, and I don't know if they have any other kids, it would make sense that like, it's fine because like, my thing would be if I did leave some leftovers and then nobody ate it and the food was a little wasted. That would be my thing, but that's not what's happening here. They're eating to a point that there is no leftovers, which I think is still fine because the food isn't being wasted. Somebody's still eating it. And that's the whole point of, you know, that's the whole point of food. And like, making food is that like, it's going to be eaten, and at some point you're not gonna have some of the stuff in the pantry and you're gonna have to replace it. At least here, all the stuff that you're buying is still being eaten, and they're still very thankful for the amount of food that they had. And again, she said like, for them, like, they're not worried about it, like, you can buy more, like, that's fine. My opinion is I don't think there is necessarily like an asshole here. I think that maybe the person posting this could have handled this a little bit better, and stuff. I think that it's possible maybe this person was raised a specific way, and you know, like, even like with just general like food culture and diet culture, what the idea of like a serving should be. But it's like, it really depends on the person and their body weight or whatever, and their, you know, their age and their sex and all that stuff. So, you know, and this person's a growing kid and like a teenager, like they typically have that. So what's interesting to me is that he even says that at the beginning. Like, he feels the need to say you wouldn't think he has all this appetite or that he's eating that much because he's lank. Which is a weird thing to say to me, like, to seem like that's relevant per se. And then to say that, like, I guess he's at the age where it's normal, I've been there. Well, if you understand, then why did you have an issue with him eating the food that you made? Like, I don't know if I want to outright say this dude's an asshole, because he didn't do anything, like, to such a strong extent. And, like, later, like, and to be fair, like, when he was a little upset that his wife went over his head, he said that he went to bed, he told her privately. So, like, they didn't make a whole fight about this in front of the kid, and, you know, everything was fine. So I, like, don't think that necessarily this person was, like, the absolute a-hole. And I don't think the wife was either. I do think that he's, like, it's a little interesting that he's mad that his wife went over his head because she said something different. But I don't think that was necessarily, like, what the intention was. And yes, what you served can be reasonable, but, like, I agree with your wife that, like, it's a little weird, and I think that maybe if you're that concerned about how, like, why the kid's eating so much, even though you seemed to not be too bothered at the beginning, maybe, like, you should look inside yourself a little bit and think why that concerns you, and if it's because, like, society's taught you that, you know, what is bad and what is good, but that's not necessarily the case. Because, like, it is actually pretty normal, especially for, like, teenage, like, boys to have a big appetite. And I even had a decent appetite when I was a teenager. So, like, I don't think that's, like, an abnormal thing, and I don't think it was necessarily an unhealthy thing either. So, I don't think there's necessarily an asshole in the story, but I do think there is ways where this could have been handled better, or, like, some internal sort of evaluation happening. But let's see if there's any comments. Okay, somebody says, you're the asshole. He's a 14-year-old growing kid who's hungry. Let him eat. It'd be one thing if he just wanted sweets, but he wanted more meatloaf. He's clearly still hungry. Okay. Yeah, right, anyone, somebody says, right, anyone who asks for meatloaf of all things is hungry, not snacky. That's true. I think it's really telling that he wanted more even after dessert. Yeah. So he's like hungry. Were you the asshole for refusing to feed your hungry nephew enough food? Yes, you're the asshole. You don't get to decide how much is enough for another person. You knew him well enough to know how much he can eat. Why didn't you plan ahead for this? Somebody else says, do you remember how much you ate at 14? Every 14-year-old boy I know is a seemingly bottomless pit when it comes to food. It's normal. You don't mention it, but does he play sports or have an active gym class at school? Not only is he growing, he also probably moves around a lot more than you do, even just playing around with friends. I did forget about that, but that is a good point. You even said that he's lanky. Could he have an extremely fast metabolism? That's true. It sounds like there are no health concerns, but you decided that your nephew should eat what you arbitrarily decide is the right amount for him. You're the asshole. Like I said, it feels like asshole is a little bit too strong of a word, but like for the sake of the subreddit, we'll put asshole with an asterisk. That like, yes, he could have handled this a lot better, and there needs to be some like internal valuation to why he thinks that like that is too much for this kid to handle, because I agree with a lot of people in the comments that like, you know, that isn't, there really wasn't like a health concern as to why he couldn't eat that much from what we're getting out of the information we're getting, like that it's fine. And even if he's lank, because somebody said, like, somebody here is trying to say there are important moments where it doesn't matter, especially if he's lank. And I do want to say that, like, even if somebody is necessarily, like a thicker kid or whatever, is in a bigger person, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're eating unhealthy amounts of food. That is, like, a gross stereotype. So, like, do say that, like, it doesn't necessarily have to do with what they look like to you. But again, when you're 14-year-olds, unless like a doctor actually has like a legitimate medical concern about somebody's size or how much they eat should not be concerning to you whatsoever, especially if they're a kid. Like, they're a kid. Your main concern is making sure that they eat enough food. Right? And if he's really genuinely that still hungry, that makes sense. And like somebody said earlier, like, not only is it just because like you're a teenager and stuff, but like what if they are really active and they're doing a gym thing or a sport and they're doing that stuff all the time? Like, you are already exerting more energy, you would be more hungry. Like when I was doing dance, I used to golf down dinner. I would have seconds, sometimes thirds, because not only was I being active as a teenager, but I did dance as my thing. That meant we were doing one day a week where we were doing 2 hours of just straight fitness, and then the rest of the week we had one day for ballet, one day for jazz, one day for lyrical, one day for contemporary. And like I was like fit and we were doing stuff, and that class ran all year. For the first semester it was during school hours, and the rest of the semester I had an extra hour after school that I was staying to practice like choreography and stuff. And so like I was hungry when I got home. So like, yeah, I think that it's fine, and he's just probably feeling like relaxed after and then had a nap, like, you know. But yeah, like I think that it's fine. And would you have would you have denied it if it was a different situation? So I think there's some asshole moves that have made. And like the miffed that your wife went over her head was a little red flaggy for me. But like, I'm not gonna say that like this is bold enough to say you're like the assholes of the asshole, but like, yeah, you're not the greatest. I don't believe you're in the right, is what I'm gonna say about this person. Alright, next story. Okay, this one's interesting. Am I the asshole for suggesting my sister and fiance get a DNA test before they get married? Okay. My sister, 26 female, is engaged to her fiance, 30 male, and getting married later this year. They both have the same last name. She was excited by this idea because then she won't have to change her last name when they get married. I have been a little bit concerned because my family comes from a small rural county in our state, and his family comes from the next county over. Our state also has a history of polygamy and large families. I hope they're being like concerned about like them being related and not like being like I guess I should say, and like that it's not just like being bad about polygamy, because polygamy is, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking about the wrong definition, because polygamy I think is different than polyamory. Right? Yes it is, because polyamory is like being in love with multiple people and wanting to be able to marry multiple people, but polygamy by itself has mostly changed into not just being able to marry multiple people because you're polyamorous, but polygamy was like definitely initially used for like one guy having like 6 wives, and that's a little bit like gross without like proper context, and it was usually used in a grody way, so maybe that's what they mean, but okay, let's just continue then. At our most recent family get-together, I suggested, not for the first time, okay, so you've done this multiple times, that they get a DNA test to make sure they aren't related. At first no one said anything, and everyone just sat in awkward silence. Then my dad chimed in and said, we can just wait until the babies come out and see if they are cross-eyed or not. I laughed at his joke, and my sister said that our last name is one of the most common last names in the state. It's not, but it is a common last name. I said that they should still check to be sure. At this point, she told me to shut the fuck up, and the conversation was over because nobody wants to deal with her. The wedding is in less than 3 months, and she wants a baby yesterday. Am I the asshole for suggesting they get a DNA test, or do you agree that it should be concerned? Edit. I want to be more clear. I have brought this up one other time when they started dating over a year ago. I think the joke about we can just wait until the babies come out and see if they are cross-eyed or not was probably where it started to get a little bit whatever, and that like I feel like there's some part where we're like there needs to be more context in this story, because I do feel like the joke might have been made in poor taste with everything, like that wasn't super funny. Also, like if he says that the wedding's less than 3 months and she wants a baby yesterday, like, you know, it could be even more concerning, because what if like they've been trying to have a baby even before they got married, because nothing says that you have to be married to have a kid, and like what if that's been like a struggle for them, and like that's hurtful, and now you're also having these comments, like there could be some concerns on her end either, or maybe multiple people have said this, and you said like this is second time you brought it up. I don't necessarily think you're the asshole, but I don't like the joke that you laughed at, and I don't like the specific conversation was over because nobody wants to deal with her. Like that seemed very emotionally charged, and I don't know if like she genuinely is somebody that doesn't really like listening to her family, or if like her family like views her in such a like bad way, like there's whatever. I do feel like if there is like this big history around this like family and like the state, and that you guys do have a similar last name, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's happening, but if like that does become a real concern, I could understand that, but I could also understand like from her perspective, her like really loving this person and having like it be this awkward, like it does become like an awkward thing if you're have a fiance and this is the shit that your family's saying. Like it does make it kind of feel weird, and like I could also understand like why, even if this was a risk and say this did really cross her mind, why she might be too scared to want to do it right away, or maybe be like shut the fuck up, because like what if you're right, like what if she's having issues with being able to have a baby, and like that joke is also what like set her off, and like this has been a thing, like what if that is a concern and she's scared because, you know, she's already fallen in love with this person and they want to get married and they care about each other, and what if they do get a DNA test and they do say that they're related, then the entire relationship becomes complicated and they're probably going to have to split up, and like, yeah, it'll be for good reason, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be really hard. And if you did figure out you were somehow related or like in some capacity, like, what are you gonna do? Like, introduce them into no family a separate way? Like, you can't be in each other's lives in the same way anymore, because you'll be like, hey, that's my cousin, but like, I've seen him naked before, we fucked, we were gonna get married, but we didn't. Like, the entire relationship, even after separating, is complicated. You might have to completely remove each other from your lives because it'll just be too weird. And so, like, I can't imagine that that's a thing that she would wish upon herself or her fiance. So I do think this person's the asshole just because some of the stuff with their family. I don't necessarily, this person laughed at the joke and I think that's an asshole thing. But I do think the family, some of the way that it's been talked about and stuff, seems very asshole-like. But I don't necessarily see, like, for suggesting they get a DNA test, no. For the rest of it, yeah, a little bit. But let's see what Reddit says. Somebody says, you're the asshole, you're nagging her about something that's none of your business, and you're not backing off when asked to do so. They can't be that closely related. If they're related at all, or older family members would have spotted the crossover. It's a common surname, and honestly, sharing a great-great-great-great-grandpa generations ago isn't a concern. Stop pestering your poor sister, and obsessing over her potential child's genetics. Okay, yeah, like, the reality is, like, if you were siblings, don't, like, I would hope that, like, if for, like, whatever reason, your parents would tell you that. Like, they can't be, like, siblings. And, like, being cousins or something would be weird, but, like, if it's, like, a great-great-great whatever, yeah. And again, like, suggesting it once, but if she already said, like, didn't do it once, that after a while it just becomes, like, you have to back off, you can't keep pushing. So, yeah. Yeah, and, like, somebody else said, quoted them at our most recent family get-together, I suggested not for the first time, and somebody said, yep, that's all. I didn't even think about the fact that he didn't say this to her in private. They did it in public in general in front of the whole family, and then the dad made the joke. Like, not the greatest thing to happen. OP, are you sure the conversation was over because nobody wanted to deal with her as opposed to nobody wanting to deal with you? Of all the things you need to let go because they're not your concern, this is in the top 5. You're the asshole. You're the asshole. You even say this wasn't the first time you mentioned it. How often are you telling them to get a DNA test? I'd be offended too, butt out, and your dad's joke wasn't funny. Yeah, I agree. Somebody also says that you could go to Ancestry, this person could go to Ancestry.com, plug in their name and the parents' names and see if you're related to fiance. Boom. Last in an entire Asian continent. Do you know how common cousin marriages and marriages within your community or village still are in significant chunks of the world? As long as they aren't actually siblings, there's nothing wrong going on here. Your concern is valid, but bringing it up more than once and in front of everyone was a dick move. You're the asshole. Yeah, I don't know. I do still feel like cousin marriages are a little weird to me too, but I guess it's like one thing you don't know necessarily, and like distant cousin marriages probably are still a thing, just the way with certain like like not even just cultures, but just like states and like with the way that family history is. So I can see that happening. But yeah, like if she's telling you to stop, like you need to like let it go because at the end it's none of your business. But this is a very complicated scenario. But I do think with the way that it's being handled and stuff, like yeah, you're the asshole. Anyway, next story. Ooh, I have a feeling this one is gonna be spicy. This is a long one, so buckle up. Am I the asshole for not attending my boyfriend's graduation dinner and how I reacted when his grandma asked my GPA? I know that your GPA has something to do with like your grade or whatever with the test. We don't do a GPA thing in Canada, and like the school I went to, you just get like a general like exam for all the stuff you've done, like sort of like a government exam that really like helps determine like a decent chunk of your grade at the end of each semester. So you have 4 classes each semester, and anything that's like an academic class, you have an exam for at the end of each semester. So one before, several before Christmas break, and then several before summer, and then you don't come back to school until the next year. But we don't have like a general test, so I'm not totally sure exactly what, if they talk at all about like the numbers for GPAs. I don't know what that means, and don't fully understand, but let's continue. My 21 female boyfriend, 21 male, of 1.5 years, so 1.5 years, graduated my 20 female, so she's 20 female, boyfriend, who's 20 male, okay, of 1.5 years, graduated college in May with a 4.0 GPA with an objectively easier degree. His words, I'm an engineering major who graduates next May 2024. I already don't like that they say an easier degree, his words, as where this goes. Because I feel like this already kind of feels like this person might think a bit higher of themselves, but save my judgments till the end. I attended graduation with his parents and grandma. I had met his parents several times before, and grandma for the first time the night before. Before the ceremony started, there was some time for us to talk when the conversation turned towards academia. Grandma asked me what was boyfriend's GPA, and I answered 4.0. Then grandma asked, what's your GPA? I was taken aback and answered, mine, 3.538. There was another very awkward pause. His mom, same major as me, then swooped in and said, that's good, I graduated with a 3.3 or something. What grandma did not know is that my crazy parents equated my worth as a person with my high school GPA. I see, trauma here. I was yelled at if I brought a grade home less than an A, and they once asked me to get my A- grades up to A. Okay, so as somebody who had very strict parents when it came to grades and pretty toxic, honestly, like pressure for that, I do understand that point. So I understand the trauma there, but let's see where this goes. I took dual enrollment classes at the same institution that one parent of mine is a professor at. That parent emailed their colleagues to check up on me because I was a minor, 16, 17 at that time. Parent was legally allowed to access my grades. An AP English teacher gave me a B as my semester grade in junior year. My parents took my report card, yelled at me, and immediately went to the principal. They pulled out my old essays when talking to the principal as to why I deserved an A and tried to get the teacher fired, but the principal gave me an A since I passed the AP exam. Everyone was happy, so we moved on with life. They have since lessened up a bit, but don't want to see any C's. So very controlling. Okay, I'm being a little triggered. Okay. So grandma accidentally like triggered you with just like the way the conversation went. Okay. After that, I was fighting back tears throughout the whole graduation. I felt physically sick and considered leaving halfway through and going back to my apartment. I ended up sobbing in the car on my way home and telling him what grandma said. He is aware on my parents' stance on grades and how it affects me. That night, I skipped his graduation dinner because I was crying and still shaken. I didn't want to see Grandma again. His mom was furious and said that she never wanted to see me again until boyfriend explained the situation. His dad became sympathetic. Mom swept it under the rug and pretended she never said what she said. I'm sure if anyone ever told Grandma about what she said, but I haven't seen any of them since then. However, this is still a frequent topic of discussion between me and my boyfriend. He thinks I'm the one who damaged the relationship between me and his parents, and that I'm at fault and need a little more control over my emotions because the GPA question is a common one to ask to students. He also knows that I have my first therapy appointment in August when I get back to our college town, and we are both looking forward to it. I don't feel like I'm at fault since I have been deprived of the emotional regulation skills a therapist could provide and can't help that my parents were jerks, but I can also see his point. So am I the asshole? Okay. I thought this, because it says easier to grade his words, I thought this person was gonna like be looking down at his partner, but I see what's happening here. Okay. So I can see how, depending on how this grandmother phrased her question, if you have parents like this, how much being asked your grades would stress you out and like do that. Like essentially this woman had a PTSD reaction, which is totally fair because as somebody else who feels pretty like related to kind of what this person's trauma is, I understand having that reaction to something. And I don't think you're the asshole for having emotions and having that reaction. But yeah, I don't think this person's the asshole for having the emotions or the reaction, because really when like something is that traumatic and like mentally tasking on you, you really can't control your initial reaction. And I could understand them still being physically upset, and I don't necessarily think the grandma was meaning to be that kind of way. And I don't like that the boyfriend says, like the fact that the boy, like, I don't think grandma's necessarily being rude. And the mom initially was like, yeah, that's like really cool. I feel like the family is where I kind of feel like this might be the issue, because I can understand how like your partner could be maybe upset that you didn't go to his graduation dinner because he was graduating too, and that's like, you know, he was graduating, and that's like something that would be really important to you, so that'd be really important to him. And so I could understand him being upset if that was the case, because he's allowed to be valid as well. But I also understand not wanting to initially go if you're still like upset, because would they want you there, you know, if you can't really like give them your all or whatever. But the fact that his mom was furious because she didn't attend and said never wanted to see her again, like it fucking exploded that fucking fast, is crazy to me. The fact that the dad was like sympathetic and was like whatever, and then like the mom just swept under the rug, pretended she never said it, but didn't ever apologize, is still like, that's triggering to me too. And the fact that the boyfriend turned around and said you're the one who damaged the relationship and that you're at fault, you need more control over your emotions, because it's a common one to ask, is like somebody who like either you need to dump his ass, or he just doesn't understand like PTSD stuff, or having anybody with like, when you have parents who are that controlling and they equate your worth to how important your grades are, that becomes your whole life. And it becomes like a normal thing that when somebody asks what's your grades, it's not like, oh, how well did you do in school? That like, if somebody, my grandma just asking what is your GPA, asking what your grades are, triggers you into thinking that if I don't say a number that this person's likes, this person's gonna just hate me as a person. Like they're gonna think that I'm the worst person because I have a lower GPA than he does or whatever. And like, so I can see that being like a genuine like worry and concern for her. And yes, like there's a certain amount of like controlling your emotions, as in like making sure you're not like raging in certain situations and like figuring out how to deal with things properly. But like controlling your emotions as in like when you have like controlling like parents who equate your worth to specific things, and most likely are, because they seem to kind of go hand in hand, are emotionally immature parents. They manipulate the F out of you when you're a kid. Chances are this person's parents did far more than just the grade type trauma. And so when that happens and you're an adult, like this person's 20, like they're still young, they're also still coming out of high school, and they didn't, they're probably still processing the trauma that happened to them while trying to graduate. Like, it's gonna be a lot. So I don't think this person's the asshole. I think the family, honestly, is a little bit of the asshole in this scenario. But I think there's some more information needs to be conducted for me to say specifically that the boyfriend is one, because maybe maybe his parents were really supportive of them and they just don't understand that. But no, I don't think you're the asshole in this case, because you were very triggered by something. I can understand it being valid if he was upset about you missing his graduation dinner, but the fact that your relationship with his parents was damaged by not attending one event and then not understanding seems like you don't even necessarily want to be in these person's lives to begin with. But I don't know. Let me see what Reddit decided. Not the asshole. But you need counseling if an innocent question by an old woman caused you this much trauma. You can't live your life like this. She did you no wrong. True, but that is really hard. Yes, counseling is needed. I agree. This person needs therapy to help do stuff. But you gotta understand that it's not necessarily that this question by an old woman caused her this much trauma. It's that she already has predetermined trauma that this triggered. I need that to be very clear. Because again, as somebody like this, I'm currently in therapy and I'm feeling a lot better, but it does destroy you. And it sounds like some of the people in this comments don't understand. And again, she's not saying that the grandma, yes, she's saying that she's having an issue, wanting to contact this grandma again, but she's not saying directly that the grandma was necessarily the asshole in this scenario, I don't think. I think this person was just saying that, this triggered me. But yeah, what really just shows me that I was right with how bad the parents are is that the person that posted this commented to reply to this person that says you need counseling if this triggered you so much. And the person said, my parents are only open to the idea right now because they think I'm mentally ill for not wanting kids. They think I will be discussing that with a therapist. Boy, are they wrong. I know I've needed it. Oh my god, this person's parents are awful. I understand this person's trauma hardcore. And oh my god, are these parents terrible people. But yeah, I don't think you're the asshole. Somebody said slightly the asshole. How is his grandma supposed to know how your parents were about grades? If it was me, I might have been surprised that you knew your GPA down to the thousands. Yeah, but again, you can't say that they're asshole just because of stuff. And she wasn't saying that the grandma was going to know. That wasn't what she was saying. The whole are they the asshole is just for missing the thing. They were just giving context there. Yeah, I do think that the easier to agree part still is oh, are you still upset that this person has got a higher GPA? But some people are actually saying soft, you're the asshole, slight, you're the asshole, you can't expect people to know your triggers without you telling them. It's also completely reasonable and a logical question to ask about somebody's boyfriend GPA. Hopefully therapy will allow you to move forward on this, otherwise job applications will be impossible for you. You're the asshole for not taking any accountability in any of this and making your boyfriend's graduation celebrations all about you. Yes, it sounds like your parents were jerks, but it generally does not sound like your boyfriend's parents or grandma were. I disagree. It's good that you're seeking therapy for this because it will help you to not be the asshole when similar situations arise in the future. If you want to last relationship with this boyfriend, you need to take steps to make things right with his family because you can't expect him to go no contact with them over this incident in a long-term relationship where you completely avoid his family will quickly cause resentment and tension. Is you're the asshole. It sounds like your parents really messed you up on that issue, and definitely getting some help to work through that will benefit you. So a lot of people, like Reddit for the most part, seems to agree that this person's the asshole, and I'm gonna have to say I don't agree with Reddit on this one. I actually really don't. And maybe I'm biased because I understand this person's trauma like wholeheartedly, because I like not like this specific situation as in like being asked in this way. I will say for me, somebody asking about my grades never sent me down this rabbit hole as in like I didn't go to stuff, but that was also because if I didn't go to certain things and put a smile on and act like I was fine, I was also treated like shit. So like I disagree with Reddit here. I don't think this person's the asshole. I do agree that like yes, a simple question, you know, whatever, but I think some of the people here don't quite understand. You gotta understand, I think this person writing in this way, and maybe this is a giant assumption here, writing in this way, though I do think that there might be some resentment with their boyfriend to begin with because of the objectively easier degree because it wasn't relevant. But I will say, I think them writing this way is them processing that this is a trigger for them. And again, they said grandma did not know that this is what happened. So she's not saying like she fully blames grandma for the situation. But this person is saying, I don't feel like I'm at fault since I've been deprived of emotional regulation skills. But that they can also see his point. And so they just wanted like an outside opinion. So I don't think, like I disagree with Reddit here. And y'all can tell me in the comments if you agree or disagree, but I disagree with Reddit. I do not think this person's an asshole for this. I think this person has been heavily traumatized. I think this person has incredibly emotionally immature parents, and they've had such high pressure on them this whole lives. And when you're like, and I don't know if this person necessarily would relate to this, but for me, when I moved away from my parents and I was going to school, it was the first time my brain allowed me to start processing all of the terrible things that were happening to me, because I was now in like a quote unquote safer environment. But I was processing all this trauma and like anything that I've had disorders of, like all hit me at once while I was attempting to do university, which I ended up, for me personally, having to drop out for because I literally could not do it. Like it was one or the other. It was I suffer and continue trying to go to school, but I probably would have offed myself. Or it's like realizing that I needed help and taking a step back and doing that first and deciding later if I decided I wanted to go back to school. And for me, that was the better decision, and I am doing a lot better now and continuing to work through stuff. This person definitely needed stuff. And I'm going to say, like, I do feel like their trauma can make you the asshole or handle situations in a bad way. But to me, an asshole is somebody who does something genuinely wrong and does it for malicious intent, or just like is so self-absorbed or self-entitled that they can't possibly see how they could be the person in the wrong, and hoping that somebody else takes their side. This person, unless there's some information in the middle here that we're missing, this person to me doesn't feel like somebody who did it for malicious intent. They're just saying as their own thing that this is why they didn't attend, because this was triggering to them. And sometimes, I will say, as somebody else who has some childhood PTSD shit, semi-frequently, okay? I'm learning to deal with my triggers. But when you are so traumatized, whatever the trauma is, and you've been emotionally immature parents, and you have never been ever taught to emotionally regulate, society doesn't help you to emotionally regulate. You just have people like this in the comments, and I'm not saying these people in the comments were necessarily trying to be mean, but instead you just have society in the comments where when you do finally get angry or you know, having a complete emotional breakdown like this, society doesn't teach you how to regulate those emotions and handle these situations better. Society just gets mad at you for having those emotions. Society just says, why is this person crazy? Why she's acting like that? Like, you're overreacting, like, you need to chill out. But nobody actually tells you, hey, human, I understand why you were upset about this. But you didn't take a moment to be able to step back and breathe before you handled this situation. And I noticed that, and this is why some people are a little bit upset at you. But I do see that your feelings are valid too. Let's teach you how to handle this better in the future. Here's some, you know, skills on how to breathe and how to calm yourself down when this stuff is happening and like help this person. The only people that can do that are therapists. So like, and there's like, especially if you have parents like this, going to therapy is its own like so fucking stigmatized thing. Like, therapy's a bad thing for you to go through. And they even said in the comments here that the only reason these parents are like potentially helping her go through therapy is because they think that she's mentally ill for not wanting children. Which is also a whole other set of trauma to like fucking dig into. So like, this person has had a pretty awful childhood and is processing that stuff. They might not have even initially known that this was a trigger for them. And when something is triggering to you, it sucks, but you can't initially control that. Later, you can kind of rewire your brain to not be triggered by those things and stuff as you work through why this upset you and how your childhood was, and you work through therapy. But if this person hasn't been through that yet, you can't get mad at somebody's reaction. And honestly, based on what's happening here, it'd be one thing if they had this reaction, they just started swearing at grandma or getting mad or getting whatever and made a whole scene in front of everybody, but they didn't. They just tried to get through the graduation scenario and chose to not go to the graduation dinner because they were still upset and they didn't want to be like shaken up and crying at the dinner. Like, as somebody who has unfortunately been in times where through being abused still or being scenario has probably been the asshole in some scenarios in my life, because I'm not fucking like a ridiculous person. I would love to think that I'm a nice person, and for the most part I try to handle things properly and, well, quote unquote properly, and like, you know, I am the first person to usually admit, but like, if I've done something wrong. But I'm not dumb enough to think that I've never been the asshole in a scenario. I do know that sometimes I fuck up and I'm the person in the wrong, and sometimes it does come from a sense of overwhelm, some ADHD stuff happening, which also doesn't help emotional regulation, and this person could potentially also have that, but I can't diagnose that, and we don't have enough information for me to say that specifically. But that plus the trauma can cause all those stuff. So I can say that there was probably moments in my life where I was younger where I would have had a scenario where I might have been the asshole, and even though it wasn't necessarily like my fault in the sense of why I reacted that way, like, yes, there's a trauma reason on why I reacted that way, but I still did not handle that situation properly and, you know, needed to apologize and fix my shit. This person doesn't even seem to have done that. Because if it was like handle situation properly, like, yes, being this upset like obviously ruins everybody's plans in this scenario, but like, this person didn't like start swearing or fighting or causing a scene. Like, that would make them the asshole where it's like, hey, I understand your trauma, but like, you really didn't, whatever. That is like a scenario where I would expect this person for being the asshole. But that's not what happened here. So I disagree. I don't think that they were asshole. I think they're just a very traumatized individual that does need to like work through some stuff. And I think that his family's the asshole in this scenario, honestly, because not necessarily the grandma for asking anything, and his mom seems nice at the beginning, but the fact that she didn't show up to one event, and yes, like, maybe the son was like a little upset about it, and that's valid too. Like, he's allowed to be upset if she didn't show up to his graduation dinner because it's important to him and he probably wanted his girlfriend there. That is fair. But his mom being like, I'm mad and I never want to see this bitch again until we know what's happening, until like he explained like why, you know, she was upset or whatever, and then just didn't apologize and meh. That seems like his mom is like overly protective of him, and that his mom might also be a little bit controlling, and she could be like a boy mom type situation where she's a little overly attached to her son, and like that his mom might cause issues because his dad was sympathetic and that was fine. And we don't know what grandma's reaction is, so I won't throw grandma under the bus here. But the mom immediately like going from 1 to 100 of like, I never want to see this person again because of this one thing, and her not knowing why this person couldn't show up right away is crazy to me. And that's where I'm like, I think the mom's a bit of an asshole in this scenario because you didn't do anything and you never like owned up to saying what you said without knowing what was going on. So like, I think this person's family is a little bit whatever, and as somebody who has issues, I don't think it's an issue of and who's also in therapy, when you have this stuff happen to you, I don't think it's an issue of controlling your emotions. It's an issue of learning to regulate your emotions. And then therefore, by learning to self-soothe and regulate, be able to calm yourself down, then you start getting into more of a place where like you can be more logical with your thinking, and ideally go to like few and far in between having like PTSD stuff happening to you and whatever. But I need people to understand that like when you have an emotional regulation issue, whether it be from general mental illness or also trauma, and or also trauma, it is really hard to like click yourself in the middle of the scenario when it is happening to you. But it'd be an issue if like she actually did something wrong or she said some terrible things and then she didn't think she was in the wrong because she was traumatized. Because you can be a traumatized person, but that doesn't mean that like that's an excuse for treating other people like shit. So if you're ever in a situation where it's really hard to pull yourself out of that reaction, because you're literally having like a full-on like mental breakdown or overstimulation stuff happening to you or whatever, it's hard to pull yourself out of that when that's happening to you. It is a big feeling that a lot of people who don't experience that will literally never understand what that feels like. And it's awful. Like, we don't want it happening to us either. Like it needs to be an understood thing that like, you didn't like that I reacted that way, I didn't like that I reacted that way either. You didn't like that I was having a panic attack? Yeah, I hate them. If I could get rid of the panic attack, I fucking would. It's not a fun thing for me to experience. You think I was looking weird or acting weird when I was hella overstimulated? Yeah, I didn't like it either. Being overstimulated fucking sucks, especially when it's with touch. Like, it's a bad thing, and when you mix overstimulation with anxiety, that becomes a whole other set of a panic attack, and it's awful. Having just like ADHD meltdowns, or if you're an autistic person, autistic meltdowns, none of us want to feel that way. It is not a fun experience for us. We're never doing it on purpose, and that needs to be a thing. But yes, is that an excuse for us to treat people like shit? No. It means if we're in that reaction, we realize, hey, maybe we handled something in a way that I didn't like when this was happening to me. Yes, we don't get to blame ourselves for having the big emotions, because the whole point of learning to regulate them and going to therapy is learning we're allowed to have big emotions, and we don't need to make ourselves smaller because it makes other people uncomfortable. That being said, if I had said something in a mental breakdown that was definitely not okay, I have to be the big person and go, hey, yes, this is why I was triggered, yes, this is why I was feeling, but it's not an excuse. I was still very rude to this person, or I did not handle the situation well, and I have to be the bigger person and go find that person and say, hey man, I am really sorry, you are right, like, everybody's feelings are valid here, but I did upset you and I know that, and I did make you feel bad, and it was not your fault, and you know, I do want, if you want to know why I reacted this way, I will let you know why, but it doesn't matter because I fucked up, and I know that. Like, I fucked up, I said something that I shouldn't have said, and you know, I'm really, really sorry, and I'm working on it, and I promise that I will try that the next time I start feeling this way, I will tell you and I will step away and we can continue this conversation later. And as you learn to do that, the more you learn to regulate your emotions and it works. But if you've never been taught that your whole life, it is really hard. And it is a process. But you can still support somebody in that process as long as that person is still able to admit when they did something wrong. But here, the person didn't have a big reaction other than like being anxious and crying. And I don't see that as a reason to call this person an asshole. And I don't like the sentence of needing to control your emotions, because I think that is very much a old saying. I've had abusers, straight up like legitimate manipulative abusers, and family members use the term control your emotions often, and it's not used in a let's work on things. It's used as to make you feel like your emotions are bad. So I'm also triggered by that sentence a little bit. But if he didn't mean it that way, I think that it's possible that this person was not like fully traumatized, or like very much like seen as like the can do no wrong child, like this person's boyfriend, and like he doesn't understand fully like why she would react that way, and that's why he says like you need a bit more control over your emotions. And I don't know how he said this, so maybe her boyfriend didn't mean for this to necessarily be rude, but I also don't think that your relationship with this person's parents should be damaged in a flat fucking second. And that, you know, it's possible but that his parents aren't, you know, the greatest match for you either. But no, I don't think this person's the asshole. I'm suspicious of this person's like this person's boyfriend's family a little bit, but I don't think this person's the asshole. And that's what I'm deeming. So, next story. Okay. So this is another long one, so this may or may not be our last one, depending how this goes. So, buckle in, kids. Am I the asshole for telling my neighbors to get a hotel if they want to do stuff every night? I, 43 male, have 6 children. Jesus. 4 daughters and 2 sons, age ranging from 16 to 2. That seems like the wrong way to range those numbers. I feel like that should be 2 to 16. But yes, from 2 years old all the way to 16 years old. All my daughters share a room, and my sons share a room. I'm aware that that's a bit intense, but they're both quite big rooms, and they all enjoy sharing a room. Okay. I mean, you do what you gotta do, sir. I can't tell you to parent, because I can tell you to parent if you're traumatizing your kids, because I can tell you, as a traumatized child, what is traumatizing. But I can't tell you fully how to parent your kids, because I don't know the full situation or the context, and I don't have kids, so. Yes. But I will say, if you have 4 daughters and 2 sons, age ranging from 16, and the daughters, or even the sons, are teenagers, I feel like it is good to have more privacy and needing, and like it does make you really want your own space. But if that's something you can't have right now, but they still have quite big rooms, that's fine. But I do disagree that I don't feel like all your kids enjoy sharing a room. I know that's a big assumption, but based on all the people I've ever known that were siblings that shared a room, if they tell you they all enjoy sharing a room, that's a fucking lie. Depending on their age ranges, that's a lie. Anyway, not the point. Our house is connected to the next door, and the neighbor's bedroom is on the same wall as both of my kids' rooms. Okay. Our new neighbors moved in about 4 months ago, and not to be TMI, but I swear they're always doing something. I'm not one to be confrontational, so I tried to just ignore it. I can sleep through the night fine. But a few days ago, my daughter, female 5, okay, a 5-year-old daughter, came into my room at 2 a.m. crying, saying she thinks the neighbors are fighting each other and that they are screaming. Of course I was concerned and told my daughter to stay in my room. I went into hers and lo and behold they were screaming, but not from fighting. Ew. At this point I was irritated. If they want to do it every day, that's their choice, but if they're waking my children up at 2 a.m., I think I have the right to say something. The next day I went over to their house and basically told the husband that if he's that horny, he can get a motel or shag in the basement. He got mad and embarrassed. He told me it was none of my business what they did in bed and then slammed the door in my face. I feel like I may have been in the wrong, but they're also doing it 6 feet away from 6 sleeping children with only a thin wall in between. Am I the asshole? I don't, if he really just, that's how he opened up that thing, just like went over, knocked on the door and said, hey, blah, blah, and didn't handle like, hey guys, just so you know, the walls are really thin and we can kind of hear when you're doing stuff. And like, by all means, have that relationship. But your wall is on the same as my 6 children. Could you maybe control that or keep it down or soundproof something? Like, then I can understand how that can be like a shitty neighbor. But like, if you just went up and being like, meh, it's a little much. But this person does have an edit. So edit, as I explained it wrong, a lot of you are saying I'm an asshole for the way I handled it. And from the way I wrote it, I completely understand that I did not put in enough context. 1, I share custody of my children, only have them on Tuesdays and Thursdays, as their mother and stepfather are in work those days. Okay. I want to make it clear that I had mentioned this to them many times over text. I told them that they can do what they want, but that on those 2 days, I'd appreciate some quiet, or for them to put on a TV show loud in the background so my kids wouldn't hear them specifically. They didn't respect those wishes and actually started doing it a lot louder on those days, and also put on very loud you-know-what videos on as well. Ooh, okay. When I went to their house, that was months into the situation and I had snapped. I have apologized to them for snapping, but I still feel as if they aren't respecting me or my children at all. Okay, so with the edit, then I don't think you're the asshole. If you've actually like genuinely properly tried talking to them about this before, being like, hey, on these days, I do have my kids here, and like that's not something I want them to hear because we don't want to traumatize the kids. Don't care if you do it. That's your life, your house, your business. But if you do, like, we can hear through the wall. Please, like, loud TV show or something, or do it somewhere else, or just like be a little bit quieter. Kind of stuff, please. But the fact that they didn't respect those wishes and then also put on very loud, like, corn videos is like, that's like directly disrespectful. Like, that's like this person didn't like register that it was kids and was just like, oh, this person just doesn't want me to have sex, meh, ha ha ha, we're annoying our neighbors. But like, that's, if this is like true and they didn't feel like they didn't want to put enough context, then yeah, like your neighbors are the asshole. And if you like at least apologize to them for snapping, that's fine, but then I wouldn't think you're the asshole. Somebody said, you're the asshole, they got a room and they pay for it just like you do. They fill their house with noisy sex and you fill yours with the result of noisy sex. I'd have slammed the door in your face too. Yeah, the father of 6 complaining about other people having sex seems a little hypocritical. See, I don't think that's the issue. See, this person I think completely misunderstood the point. The point wasn't getting mad at these people for having relations. That's fine. It's their home, it's their own thing. If you have a high sex drive, whatever, have fun. That's not what he was saying. He was saying that, hey, we have really thin fucking walls and I have 6 children that can hear everything that's happening across the way. It's one thing if I have to deal with it, but I agree that children, especially when they're trying to go to sleep, shouldn't have to hear loud screaming, moaning porn videos in the fucking next door. Okay? They don't need to hear that. As a kid who sometimes had thin walls in my house and my parents would have you know what, and I could hear them clear as fucking day, not a fun experience. Not something I'd enjoy, and definitely something I wouldn't want my kids hearing. Period. I don't think that was the issue. See, this person said, being noisy. Yeah, being noisy at 2 a.m., waking up your neighbors is not okay at all, no matter if it's for sex or other reasons which can be avoided or toned down. I agree that he phrased it badly and shouldn't have suggested a hotel instead of their own home. That just doesn't make sense, but other than that, not the asshole. Yeah, you're the asshole. I get it's annoying, but you don't get to dictate what consenting adults do in their own home, and you definitely don't tell them to spend money on a motel, hotel, holiday inn instead of enjoying their own home. See, again, Yeah. I'm like, again, I don't feel like you're understanding the point. It's not saying that these consenting adults can't have sex. Like, that's not what this person is saying. This person's saying, hey, you don't get to do it so loud that I can hear every fucking thing you're doing, and doing it loud even after I've asked you to not do it. And like, this person has kids, it doesn't want the kids hearing it. Like, that's the issue. Like, their kids are trying to fucking sleep. And somebody said, short emergency, waking your neighbors at 2 a.m. is not okay. Yeah. Okay, this person seems interesting. All these "you're the asshole" crack me up. Yes, these people are free to have sex in their own home, no argument. What they are not allowed to do is be so loud it disturbs neighbors, especially after 10 to 11 p.m. where many people have ordinances on noise. Do they rent or own? If renting, start complaining to the landlord, start calling the police and file a noise complaint, not the asshole. I know I'm going to assume these people have never lived with a late night noisy neighbor before. It can drive you absolutely insane and affect your sleep. Yeah. See, like, that's my thing. Right now I'm filming. It is 10 o'clock at night. Everybody in my house is awake. Our neighbors are usually decently awake. And I'm in a place that's like really far away that nobody can hear. I quiet down the minute somebody's like, hey Kelly, you're being a little too loud. I'm like, okay, I'm so sorry. So sorry. On top of that, when I have lived where I know somebody lives downstairs or whatever, past like 8 o'clock, depending on if anybody, this person's told me anything in specifics, I'm quiet. As best as quiet as I can be for knowing that we have neighbors. Like, because we can hear stuff. And like in houses where I know you couldn't hear that much, it wasn't that big of a deal. But because my room was close to the door in one of the places I lived in where we had somebody living downstairs, we tried to kind of more or less quiet down past 8 o'clock unless we could hear that this person was still up, because like we could hear his TV loud and clear from the doorway. And he never made a complaint, we never made a complaint against him. In my other house, we had like a little old lady who was our landlord who lived above us, and we would quiet down for the most part. And with this lady, we were chill. You always respect what is happening. And that's why, like, I'm okay with filming late at night sometimes, but like for streams and stuff where I know I can be loud and I'm playing games, like, you know, and with this new, you know, weekly schedule thing I'm gonna start putting out, and I will, and am putting out, like, most of my stuff isn't past 9 p.m. anymore unless I absolutely know that I can, because I'm both respecting the people in my house that are working and stuff the next day and my neighbors. I don't want to be that loud. And I'm somebody who dabbles in the intimate relations sometimes with my partners. We're never that fucking loud. Like, we're very respectful of other people in the house that don't want to hear that shit. It's one thing if you're home alone and you know your neighbors aren't home, like, do what you want. But like, and like, if you're screaming, hopefully it's good. But like, there's a respect thing, and you can still have fun and not be loud. Like, I don't understand. I don't understand. The way you went about it wasn't the smoothest. Yeah, probably should have had a script or something. But no, they paid for the house, they can be loud, it's just sex, just no dudes. The first few times I had sex, yeah, it was loud, but then, hey, I live in an apartment with others who can hear, so guess what? We matured and lowered our voices out of common courtesy for our neighbors. It's not stifling sex or being prudish. Literally, you can have an amazing love life without breaking a megaphone and yelling, I am currently being railed, world. Yeah, exactly. Like, there's no reason you need to be that loud to have a fun time. Like, you have to respect your neighbors, the people in your house, like, stuff like that. Like, you don't need to be that loud. Somebody says, you're the asshole, the situation sucks, but you have no right to go over there and ask them to stop. That's completely inappropriate. Well, then I don't think that's inappropriate if this person's being so loud consistently that they're hearing it, especially knowing that this person did an edit saying, hey, like, I have asked them to stop respectfully other times before and talked to them about, like, just being a bit more quiet when my kids are over. like, no, I don't think it's necessarily completely inappropriate to ask your neighbors to stop being so loud with their sex noises. If they're being that fucking loud all the time that you can hear it, like, I don't think that makes you the asshole. If they're being that loud deliberately all the time, then don't fucking get embarrassed then, because you knew we could fucking hear you. Like, what? I don't know, but this person is saying just one of the problems of living in close proximity to other people. Unless you are willing to move to a more secluded area, it is something you will just have to deal with. Do your 6 kids ever fight, scream, or yell? I am sure your neighbors hear you too. In the meantime, invest in some noise machines to help mitigate the sounds. You can also look into soundproofing the rooms. They sell heavy curtains and things to help reduce sound. The end part is helpful, and yes, I agree, like, the kids probably also scream, fight, yell, whatever. But I'm guessing I'm hoping that if this person is saying, hey, these people are being loud and waking my kids up, that he is also trying to basically be like, hey, after a certain time, you quiet the fuck down. In general, right? Yeah, I think your comment misses the context of 2 a.m. My neighbors are allowed to have get-togethers, play loud music, etc. through the day. But 2 a.m., nah. I'm coming over and asking to be turned down, and if not, I'm calling the cops for disturbance of the peace. They can go to Pound Town and be loud all they want, but also within reason, and 2 a.m. is no longer within reason. Soft, you're the asshole for the way it was handled, and another soft, you're the asshole to the neighbors not understanding how ridiculous those noises are at 2 a.m. while sharing a wall with a neighbor. Yeah. There's normally noise laws, and it seems like the neighbors are getting louder on purpose. Just like if you have a super loud party past a certain time, you can't blare noises and purposely scream to wake your neighbor's kids. You've tried talking to them about it and it only got worse. I would check on the noise laws to see if calling the police would help. Also, I'd be pissed if my neighbor put on corn and cracked it for my young child to hear. That's not appropriate or right in any way. Not the asshole, likely an unpopular opinion here, but part of living anywhere with shared walls is not being disruptive to the point of being an annoying neighbor every single day, apartment, townhome, etc. I would feel the same way if you lived in a single-family home and the people in the home next door left their window open and screamed their brains out while getting down. Considerate people just don't do this. Yeah, exactly. Not the asshole, they're having sex in their own house, but their sound waves are entering your property. They are affecting at you. At minimum, ESH, which I don't know what that means. This is peak Reddit. I'm starting to hate how individualistic this sub has become. Shame. Somebody says, like, listen, if you have 6 kids and thin walls, what sounds like a duplex, your neighbors probably put up with more noise than you do. Leave them alone. Somebody says, like, you could switch bedrooms with the kids, which, like, is one way to mitigate that. And I would do that too, but if they're still being that loud, like, I don't know, man. I don't think this person's the asshole. That's what I'm just gonna say. I do feel like there's probably multiple ways that this can be handled, but I don't think this person is the asshole. Like, period. Because, like, you be respectful. And, like, it's just like, yes, they're having sex or whatever, but it's just like having a party or having loud music. Like, if you have people that work next to you or kids that need to sleep and whatnot, you don't do loud as fuck things past, like, at maximum 10, 11 o'clock at night. Like, if somebody was doing something like that to me at 2 a.m., I would lose my shit. To be fair, I really hate confrontation, so I probably wouldn't actually say anything. But it's different when you have kids, because other than just, like, generally being annoyed because my kid's waking up and it's late at night and it's because of these people, it's also terrible because the kids are being introduced to sex noises far younger than they should be. So not cool. Like, yes, the kids are gonna one day be introduced to this shit, but that should be like late teens at most. Like, the kids are not consenting to this either, okay? And 5-year-old, 2-year-old kids should not be hearing this shit. Both for the sake of being woken up at 2 a.m. and also just, that's just gross. That's gross and grody and inappropriate to me. And if you said no, and like tried to tell them about this, and now they're purposely like turning shit up louder, and it's that whatever, that's incredibly inappropriate. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Okay. One more. And I have a feeling that I will have a bias to this one. Am I the asshole for giving my significant other the silent treatment after she got rid of my cat? I, 24 male, absolutely adore cats. I mean, I love them more than anything, but my significant other, Sophia, 21 female, hates cats. We have twins together. I had a cat when we started dating, but I put him down a month after we moved in together due to multiple health issues. Aw. If my cat was young and healthy, she wouldn't have wanted to stay with me, but he was old and unhealthy, so she had no problem with it. Okay, Sophia has a 2-year-old small dog, Ollie, dash end. The dog moved in with us a month after my cat passed due to her dog being really uncomfortable around cats. Recently, I've really wanted another cat, but Sophia would always refuse me. I got tired of it yesterday because it's unfair how she has a pet, but I can't get one. So yesterday, I brought home a 3-year-old cat. The cat was chill, but Ollie had a huge overreaction and hid. When I would try to get him out of hiding and to loosen up, he would snap and start barking. Ollie came out of hiding when Sophia got home, and she unleashed hell on me. She told me the bastard cat had to be gone tomorrow, or else she was getting rid of it herself. I didn't believe her, and today when I came home, all of the cat's things and cat were gone. I was upset and asked her what she did with my cat. She said she returned it to the shelter. I yelled that returning it to a shelter was stressing it out. She said she didn't give a fuck and that it would have happened had I wouldn't have happened had I not got the cat in the first place. She ended it off with the fact that this home is Ollie's home, not whatever cat I bring in. I've since stopped talking to her, and she said I'm petty. Whoa, okay, this is not where I thought this was going. Everybody involved is the asshole here, okay? Everybody involved is the asshole, that's what I'm saying. First of all, if your partner hates cats, like it's not like an allergy thing, and your partner hates cats and you adore cats, y'all shouldn't be together. Like, if you can't agree on the animals you own, y'all should not be together. Y'all are not the right match, okay? Now, yes, she's the asshole for being like, this is the dog's home and not any cat that you want to bring in, and absolutely not, and I'll get rid of the cat if you don't do it, and blah blah, like, yeah, fucking, she's a bitch, okay? But you are also the asshole because you, at least currently, or at least in the time of the story, are together with your partner and you live together. It should be a joint decision on if you're going to have an animal in the house. And if she said no and you're just mad that, like, she has a pet but you can't have one and brought it out of pettiness, you bought the cat straight out of pettiness. And this cat is like a 3-year-old cat. It's not a baby. It is like been a couple years. She does have a dog who she said has reactions to cats and he gets uncomfortable. That was both really traumatizing and dangerous for the dog to just suddenly be being introduced to the cat without like any tact or slowly or anything. And that was dangerous to the cat, because what if the dog had bit it or something? Like, you don't know, because unfortunately that's the reaction. And yes, she just says she doesn't like cats, but it could be that she also has this aversion to cats because she cares about this dog and he has a reaction to cats. So like, overall, everybody's the asshole here, because that was a really dangerous thing for you to put the cat into, and you did not respect your partner's wishes or try to like deal with it together at all. But she's also the asshole that, like, she didn't give a fuck about this cat and just gave it back to the shelter and, like, was as being a dick about you owning other animals. And saying that, like, it's only the dog's home and not whatever other things that he wants to have. So, overall, everybody's the asshole in this situation, and I don't think you guys should be together. Like, personally, I think that, I don't know how long you and this person have done. You said you have twins together. I'm sorry, y'all should get, like, I don't know, joint custody or something so that you have the kids for one section at a time and she has the kids for the other section at times, and, like, and honestly, like, break up, because you guys don't, from what I gather from the story, neither of you respect each other at all, and if you can't have an agreement on, like, the animals you have in your house and respect each other's, like, wishes and, like, work it out together, y'all shouldn't be together, and y'all should definitely not have had kids. Sorry, everybody's the asshole here. Everybody's the asshole. Somebody says, I'm guessing ESH also means, like, everybody is terrible or something, saying, you're not compatible and you're making each other miserable because you have different expectations for what living together should look like, and it's not going to improve because you both think that your own desires matter so much more than the other person's that you can't major unilateral decisions. It wouldn't be so bad if it was a disagreement over furniture, but you're both making innocent animals' lives worse. These unilateral decisions are a big deal. No healthy couple forces their law on each other. Big yikes all around. Everyone's the asshole. If cats were a deal breaker, then consider the deal broken on both sides. You guys are a bad couple. The deal should have been broken before they moved in and had kids. OP agreed to start a life together knowing they wouldn't have a cat, and now he thinks he has leverage to trample over that agreement. He's the only one breaking the deal here, saying that this is a cat lover. OP is purely for putting a cat in that situation. Saying this as a cat lover, OP is an asshole purely for putting a cat in that situation. Yes, I agree, but I also don't like how the lady's handling this either. Did y'all miss that they have twins together? So it isn't just a question of breaking up with SO or asking her to leave with her dog. They have to co-parent together, and this is how he communicates and how she responds. Yeah, exactly. Like, overall, y'all should not be a fucking couple. Tell you that right now. Yes, how is she supposed to respond? Bringing back a cat has been brought without her knowledge to her house. Upsetting her dog is the only thing to do. It's completely OP's fault for putting the poor cat through this. I don't like how she does shit either, though. The way that she's being told in this situation, I think both y'all suck. Yeah, overall, everybody's the asshole. Yeah, why did you decide to pursue a relationship with someone who hates cats if having a pet cat was extremely important to you? Pets fall into the 2 yes, 1 no category. She said no and you went behind her back. Yeah. Somebody is trying to say this person's the asshole, saying, so you figure that, quoting something they said, that this person hates cats. If my cat was young and healthy, she wouldn't have wanted to stay with me. So you figured now that she's been saddled with your twins, you felt she wouldn't have any option but to stay with you. Is that it? Because that's the only thing that's changed. She still hates cats and she still doesn't want to live with one. It's unfair how she has a pet, but I can't get one. Her dog being really uncomfortable around cats. So you think it's unfair that she has a pet, so you got one that you knew would make her pet uncomfortable? Dude, get over yourself. Make the choice. It's cat ownership or having your family. Based on how flippantly you disregarded her feelings when you knew damn well how things stood, I'd hazard a guess that you're selfish and thoughtless in other aspects of your relationship too. I wouldn't be surprised if this was the straw that broke things. You figured having a stressed out snapping dog around your probably very young kids is something a caring parent would do? What the fuck? Yeah, everybody's the asshole in my opinion. Frankly, the moment you learn she hates cats is the moment you should have ended the relationship. Not saying she's a bad person, just that cat lovers and cat haters shouldn't be together because of this sort of situation. However, you stayed with her. You accepted a dog into your home. You made an arbitrary decision to get a cat. You didn't believe her when she said she'd get rid of the cat. She's the asshole because she's unreally willing to compromise and she got rid of the cat. Did everyone else miss how he casually throws in that they have twins? Did I have a stroke reading that, or was that real life? I refuse to believe two people with kids who would be this petty and disrespectful over animals without some kind of underlying issue at play. No, you can still compromise. I agree. I think everybody's a bit of the asshole in this situation, but you do not do stuff without stuff like this without consulting your partner in the situation. It was unfair of you to put this poor dog, because I'm a cat lover and I will always be a cat lover, but I also love dogs. I love animals, okay? Do I prefer cats? Yes. But I also love dogs. I just love animals, and that was super dangerous for you to put the cat in that situation, and it was super dangerous to put the dog through this stress, not to mention what would have happened if your kids went near the dog while the dog was stressed. You don't know what's happening, you didn't consult your partner, and on top of that, you went and got a cat without really thinking about it or whatever, just to be petty. Like, that's also just not a thing you should do, not only like just because you're not consulting your partner or whatever, but also because the fucking cat does not deserve to have a home and have it ripped away. Yes, and that's like where she's a bit of the asshole in that part, but like it's also your fault. Like, she's right, part of that is definitely your fault. So I think everybody's the asshole, but like you done fucked up, sir, and y'all should separate and hope to God you can figure out something to co-parent, because Jesus Christ, like this is not a good relationship. The two people were not meant for